bottom of the jacket had been carefully fastened to the bulkhead so that the hole might not be seen by its swinging to one side. All this time Tiger was lying in the foot of the berth and appeared to have recovered in some measure his faculties, for I could see him occasionally open his mouth and draw a long breath. Open his eyes and draw a long breath. After a few minutes, the mate and the cook went above, leaving Dirk Peters behind, who, as soon as they were gone, came and sat himself down in the place just occupied by the mate. He began to talk very sociably with Augustus, and we could just now see the greater part of his apparent intoxication, while the two others were with him, was a faint. He answered all my companion's questions with perfect freedom, told him that there was no doubt of his father's having been picked up, as there were no less than 5 sail in sight just before sundown on the day he was cut adrift, and used other language of a consolatory nature, which occasioned me no less surprise than pleasure. Indeed, I began to entertain hopes that through the instrumentality of Peters we might be finally enabled to regain possession of the brig, and this idea I mentioned to Augustus as soon as I found an opportunity. He thought the matter possible, but urged the necessity of the greatest caution in making the attempt, as the conduct of the hybrid appeared to be instigated by the most arbitrary caprice alone, and indeed it was difficult to say if he was at any moment of sound mind. Peters went upon deck in about an hour, and did not return again until noon, when he brought Augustus a plentiful supply of junk beef and pudding. Of this, when we were left alone, I partook heartily, without returning through the hole. No one else came down into the forecastle during the day, and at night I got into Augustus's berth, where I slept soundly and sweetly until nearly daybreak, when he awakened me upon hearing a stir upon deck, and I regained my hiding place as quickly as possible. When the day was fully broke, we found that Tiger had recovered his strength almost entirely and gave no indications of hydrophobia. Drinking a little water that was offered to him with great apparent eagerness. During the day, he regained all of his former vigor and appetite. His strange conduct had been brought on, no doubt, by the deleterious quality of the air of the hold, and had no connection with canine madness. I cannot sufficiently rejoice that I persisted in bringing him with me from the box. This day was the 13th of June. This day was the 30th of June, and the 13th since the Grampus made sail from Nantucket. On the 2nd day of July, the mate came below, drunk as usual, and in an excessively good humor. He came to Augustus' berth and giving him a slap on the back, asked him if he thought he could behave himself if he let him loose, whether he would promise not to be going into the cabin again. To this, of course, my friend answered in the affirmative, when the ruffian set him at liberty, after making him drink from a flask of rum which he drew on from his coat pocket. Both now went on deck, and I did not see Augustus for about 3 hours. He then came below with the good news that he had obtained permission to go about the brig as he pleased anywhere forward of the mainmast, and that he had been ordered to sleep, as usual, in the forecastle. He brought me to a good dinner and a plentiful supply of water. The brig was still cruising for the vessel from the Cape Verds, and a sail was now in sight, which was sought to be the one in question. As the events of the ensuing 8 days were of little importance, and and had no direct bearing upon the main instance of my narrative, I would here throw them together in the form of a journal, as I do not wish to omit them altogether. July 3rd. Augustus furnished me with 3 blankets with which I contrived a comfortable bed in my hiding place. No one came below except for my companion during the day. Tiger took a station in the berth just by the aperture and slept heavily, as if not yet entirely recovered from the effects of his sickness. Toward night, a fall of wind struck the brig before a sail could be taken in and nearly capsized her. The puff died away immediately, however, and no damage was done beyond the splitting of the foretopsail. Dirk Peters treated Augustus all day with his great kindness and entered into a long conversation with him respecting the Pacific Ocean and the islands he had visited in that region. He asked me whether he would not like to go with the mutineers on a kind of exploring and pleasure voyage in those quarters, and said that the men were gradually coming over to the mate's views. To this, Augustus thought it would be best to reply that he would be glad to go on such an adventure, since nothing better could be done and that anything was preferable to a piratical life. July 4th. The vessel in sight proved to be a small brig from Liverpool and was allowed to pass unmolested. Augustus spent most of his time on deck with a view of obtaining all the information in his power respecting the intentions of the mutineers. They had frequent and violent quarrels among themselves, and one of which a harpooner, Jim Bonner, was thrown overboard. The party of the mate was gaining ground. Jim Bonner belonged to the cook's gang, of which Peters was a partisan. July 5th. About daybreak, there came on a stiff breeze from the west, while at noon freshened into a gale, so that the brig could carry nothing more than her trysail and foresail. In taking in the foretopsail, Sims, one of the common hands, and belonging to also the cook's gang, fell overboard, being very much in hands and belonging also to the cook's gang. Being very much in liquor, was drowned. No attempt being made to save him. The whole number of persons on board was now 13, to wit: Dirk Peters, Seymour, the black cook, Jones, Greeley, Hartman Rogers, and William Allan of the cook's party. The mate, whose name I never learned, Absalom Hicks, Wilson, John Hunt, and Richard Parker of the mate's party, besides Augustus and myself. July 6th. The gale lasted all this day, blowing in heavy squalls accompanied with rain. The brig took in a good deal of water through her seams, and one of the pumps was kept continually going, Augustus being forced to take his turn. Just at twilight, a large ship passed close by us without having been discovered until within hail. The ship was supposed to be one for which the mutineers were on the lookout. The mate hailed her, but the reply was drowned in the roaring of the gale. At 11, a sea was shipped amidships, which tore away a great portion of the larboard bulwarks, and did some other slight damage. Toward morning, the weather moderated, and at sunrise, there was very little wind. July 7th. There was a heavy swell running all this day, during which the brig, being light, rolled excessively and many articles broke loose in the hold, as I could hear it distinctly from my hiding place. I suffered a great deal from seasickness. Peters had a long conversation this day with Augustus and told him that 2 of his gang, Greeley and Allan, had gone over to the mate and were resolved to turn pirates. He put several questions to Augustus which he did not exactly then understand. During a part of this evening, the leak gained upon the vessel, and little could be done to remedy it, as it was occasioned by the brig's straining, and taking in the water through their seams. A sail was thrummed and got under the bows, which aided us in some measure, so that we began to gain upon the leak. July 8th. A light breeze sprang up at sunrise to the eastward, when the mate headed through the brig to the southwest, with the intention of making some of the West India Islands, in pursuance of his piratical designs. No opposition was made by the Peters or the cook, at least not in the hearing of Augustus. All idea of taking the vessel from the Cape Birds was abandoned. The leak was now easily kept under by one pump going every 3/4 of an hour. The sail was drawn from beneath the bows. Spoke 2 small schooners during the day. July 9th. Fine weather. All hands employed in repairing bulwarks. Peters had again a long conversation with Augustus, and spoke more plainly than he had done heretofore. He said nothing should induce him to come into the mate's views, and even hinted his intention of taking the brig out of his hands. He asked my friend if he could depend upon his aid in such a case, to which Augustus said yes, without hesitation. Peters said then he would sound the others of his party upon the subject, and went away. During the remainder of the day, Augustus had no opportunity of speaking with him privately. July 10th. Spoke a brig from Rio bound to Norfolk. Weather hazy with a light baffling wind from the eastward. Today, Hartman Rogers died, having been attacked on the 8th with spasms after drinking a glass of grog. The man was in the cook's party, and one upon whom Peters placed his reliance, his main reliance. He told Augustus that he had believed the mate had poisoned him, and that he expected it if he did not be on the lookout. His own turn would come shortly. There were now only myself, Jones, and the cook belonging to his own gang. On the other side, there were 5. He had spoken to Jones about taking the command from the mate, but the project having been coolly received, he had been deterred from pressing the matter any further, or from saying anything to the cook. It was as well as it happened that he was so prudent, for in the afternoon the cook expressed his determination of siding with the mate, and went over formally to that party, while Jones took an opportunity of quarreling with Peters, and hinted that he would let the mate know of his plan in agitation. There was now evidently no time to be lost, and Peters expressed his determination of attempting to take the vessel at all hazards, provided Augustus would lend him in his aid. My friend at once assured him of his willingness to enter into any plan for that purpose, and thinking the opportunity a favorable one, made known the fact of my being on board. At this, the hybrid was not more astonished than delighted, as he had no reliance whatever upon Jones, whom he already considered as belonging to the party of the mate. They went below immediately when Augustus called me by name, and Peters and myself were soon made acquainted. It was agreed that we should attempt to retake the vessel upon first good opportunity, leaving Jones altogether out of our counsels. In the event of success, we were to run the brig into the first port that offered, and to deliver her up. The desertion of his party had frustrated Peters' design of going into the Pacific, an adventure which could not be accomplished without a crew, and he depended upon either getting acquittal upon trial, or on score of insanity, which he solemnly averred had actuated him in lending his aid to the mutiny. or upon taking a pardon. Obtaining a pardon, if found guilty, through the representations of Gus and myself. Our deliberations were interrupted for the present by the cry of "All hands taken sail," and Peter and Augustus ran up on deck.